Students, you all might be around the age of 11 to 13 years. You are a teenager now. But if I ask you what were you like when you were 1 year old? Were you the same as you are now? Were you born with this height and weight? No. You were very small, and as the years passed by, you kept on growing and changing. Now, if we talk about our parents, you must have heard it coming from them that when they were kids, they didn't have smartphones, smart classes, and all the facilities we have today. So, what does this mean? Here we are talking about the changes which have taken place in the past so many years. Interestingly, each and everything on the earth is growing and changing day by day. Can you imagine the changes which have taken place over 1,000 years? Name any three of them? Yes, there are so many changes. While we study history, what we are actually doing is tracing changes through ages and understanding how we got here. Let us now have a look at what all changes took place in history over 1,000 years. So, what all will we study about? In Class 7, we will be talking about the years from 700 to 1750. The topics we will be covering are Indian maps, new and old terminologies, historians and their sources, new social and political groups, region and empire, thinking about time and historical periods. The first change we talk about is a change in geographical maps. You can see two maps here. The maps represent details of the Indian subcontinent. Map 1 was drawn by Arab geographer Al-Idrisi in 1154, while Map 2 was drawn after 600 years by French cartographer in 1720. Who is a cartographer? A cartographer is a person who makes maps. After seeing both the maps, can you tell me the difference between the two? Let's discuss now. Firstly, the map by Arab geographer Al-Idrisi was drawn in 1154, while the French cartographer drew it in 1720. Secondly, the map by Al-Idrisi is not used, while that of the French cartographer is used by European sailors and merchants on voyages. The language used by Arab geographers was Arabic. Lastly, Al-Idrisi positioned Sri Lanka in North India, whereas the French cartographer positioned it in South India on the map. Because of this difference, it is important that when historians read documents, maps, and texts from the past, they are sensitive to the following: different historical backgrounds, contexts in which information of the past was produced. The next topic is new and old terminologies. Over the period of time, what all changed? The changes take place in language, the meaning of words, grammar, and vocabulary. Let's see how the meanings of words have changed over time. The first word we talk about is Hindustan. The term Hindustan is known as India, the modern nation-state today. And what's the history behind this? It was first used by Minhaj-e-Siraj in the 13th century. At that time, Hindustan meant areas of Punjab, Haryana, and the lands between Ganga and Yamuna. Areas that were under the control of the Delhi Sultan. In the early 16th century, Babur used it to describe the geography, the fauna, and the culture of the inhabitants of the subcontinent. However, today or in modern times, we all use it as India, the modern nation-state. Students, you must be wondering how you can remember so many details of each chapter. You can make it easier by making notes of each chapter. You can go to the EduRev app or website and get a detailed understanding of chapter-wise notes, NCERT textbooks, solutions, and much more. Now let me ask you another question. What do you call a person who comes from another country like Australia, Canada, or USA? We call them foreigners. The word foreigner today means a person who is not an Indian. In the medieval period, the word foreigner meant any stranger who appeared in the village not belonging to their society or culture. In Hindi, the term Pardesi was used. In Persian, it was called ajnabi. Now the question may arise, how do we come to know about the changes that took place? So let us now take a look at the third topic, that is, historians and their sources. Historians use different types of sources to learn about the past, based on their period of study and the nature of the investigation. Coins, inscriptions, architecture, and textual records provide information. Also, paper gradually became cheaper and more widely available. People used paper to write holy texts, chronicles of rulers, letters, and teachings of saints, petitions and judicial records, and registers of accounts and taxes, which were called manuscripts. What is a manuscript? Manuscript means handwritten, because back then, neither printing press nor computers were there. However, manuscripts were only collected by wealthy people, rulers, monasteries, and temples. They were placed in libraries and archives. We all know what a library is, but what about archives? An archive is a place where documents and manuscripts are stored. Because there were no printing machines, scribes copied manuscripts by hand. A scribe is a person who serves as a professional copyist, especially one who made copies of manuscripts before the invention of automatic printing. As scribes copied manuscripts, they also introduced small changes, a word here, a sentence there. These small differences grew over centuries. Same text became substantially different from one another. Today, all national and state governments have archives where they keep all their old official records and transactions. So, the records that have come to us are quite different from the original, but no evidence is found as the original writing is not found. Also, the authors revised their chronicles. Do you remember what chronicles are? It is a record of events in a detailed way. The 14th century chronicler Ziauddin Bani wrote his chronicle first in 1356 and the second version in 1358. The two are different from each other, but historians did not know about the existence of the first version until the 1960s. It remained lost in large library collections. Now, let's move on to the fourth topic, which is new social and political groups. The study of the 1,000 years between 700 and 1750 is a huge challenge to historians, largely because of the scale and variety of developments that occurred over the period. This was a period of economic, political, social, and cultural changes. The new technologies that made an appearance were the Persian wheel in irrigation, the spinning wheel in weaving, firearms in combat. New food and beverages also arrived, like potatoes, corn, chilies, tea, and coffee. It was a period of great mobility. Groups of people traveled. One such group of people was Rajputs, derived from the word Rajputra, meaning son of a ruler. During this period, there was a development of the Kshatriya caste system. The first Rajputra means the rulers. Then the term started to be applied to a group of warriors who claimed Kshatriya caste status. Afterward, the term also included rulers, chieftains, soldiers, and commanders who served in the army of different monarchs. Poets and bards of these Rajput rulers ascribed some great qualities, such as great valor and an immense sense of loyalty to these rulers. The other groups of warriors were Marathas, Sikhs, Jats, Ahoms, and Kayasthas also used this opportunity. Now, throughout this period, there was clearing of the forests, which led to the development of agriculture. The forest dwellers had to migrate due to forest cutting. Some became farmers, and due to differences in the land, there emerged status differences. There was division in jatis or subcastes on the basis of backgrounds and occupations. Ranks were not fixed permanently and varied according to the power. Jatis framed their own rules and regulations to manage the conduct of their members. These regulations were enforced by an assembly of elders, described in some areas as the Jati Panchayat. But Jatis were also required to follow the rules of their villages. Several villages were governed by a chieftain. Together they were only one small unit of a state. So the next topic of the chapter is region and empire. What were the changes? Large states like those of the Cholas or Mughals encompassed many regions. A Sanskrit Prashasti that praises Delhi Sultan Ghiyasuddin Balban tells that he was the ruler of a vast empire that stretched from Bengal in the east to Ghazni in Afghanistan in the west and included all of South India. There were considerable conflicts between various states, and the people of different regions fled from his armies. When the Mughal Empire declined in the 18th century, it led to the re-emergence of regional states. Amir Khusro noted in the 13th century many different languages in every region of this land. Lahori, Kashmiri, Dwasamudri, Telangani, Gujri, Avdhi, and Hindavi. He claimed that only Sanskrit did not belong to any region. It was an old language that common people did not know, only the Brahmins knew. What about old and new religions? The 1,000 years witnessed major developments in religious traditions. Religion was often closely associated with the social and economic organization of local communities. It was during this period that important changes occurred in the Hindu religion. It included the worship of new deities, the construction of temples by royalty, and the growing importance of Brahmanas in the Hindu religion. Knowledge of Sanskrit helped Brahmins to earn respect. Another development in religion is the idea of bhakti, of a loving, personal deity that devotees could reach without the aid of priests or elaborate rituals. Many religions came to India at this time. Merchants and migrants first brought the teachings of the Holy Quran to India in the 7th century. Muslims regard the Quran as their holy book and accept the sovereignty of the one God, Allah, whose love, mercy, and bounty embrace all those who believe in Him, without regard to social background. The last thing we will talk about in this chapter is time and historical periods. As per historians, time is not just a passing of hours, days, or years as a clock or a calendar. It also reflects changes in social and economic organization. The study of time made it easier to divide the past into periods that have shared characteristics. The British historians divided the history of India into 3 periods: Hindu, Muslim, and British. This division was based on the idea that the religion of the rulers was the only important historical change and that there was no other significant development. Most historians look to economic and social factors to characterize the major elements of different moments of the past. The life of hunter-gatherers, early farmers, and early empires were called early societies. The growth of imperial state formations, the development of Hinduism and Islam as major religions, and the arrival of European trading companies were called the medieval period. The last era was called modernity, which carried a sense of material progress and intellectual development. So with this, we come to an end of our first chapter of social sciences, which is tracing changes through 1,000 years. Now your task is to go to the EduRev app or website, revise your chapter through mind maps, and take tests to evaluate yourself. You can also unlock all the locked documents, videos, and tests with the EduRev Infinity package at less than 80 rupees per month to ace your exams. Thank you, students. I will see you in the upcoming videos.